My wife told the doctors, stop his treatment. He can't afford this surgery anyway. I replied, you're right. She grabbed the pen to sign the release, only to see the hospital's chief of surgery walk in and rip the paper from her hands. He looked at her and said, he doesn't need insurance. He's my son. Get out of my hospital. I should probably start with how I ended up needing emergency surgery at St. Mary's Medical Center at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. But honestly, that part's not as important as what happened after. The aneurysm in my brain decided to rupture while I was sleeping. 1 second, I'm dreaming about something I can't remember. Next second, I'm screaming in pain, so intense I thought my skull was splitting open. Sarah, my wife of 6 years, she woke up when I fell out of bed. Found me on the floor convulsing. Called 911. I remember that part in flashes. The ambulance. The lights. The EMTs asking me questions I couldn't answer because my brain felt like it was on fire. St. Mary's is where they took me. The best neurosurgery program in the state. Also the most expensive. Also, and I didn't know this until later, where my father worked as chief of surgery. I hadn't spoken to my father in 8 years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The ER doctor explained it to Sarah while I was barely conscious on the gurney. Ruptured cerebral aneurysm. Needed immediate surgery. Without it, I'd be dead by morning. With it, I had maybe a 70% chance if they operated in the next 2 hours. How much? Sarah asked. That should have been my first clue. Not will he be okay or what are his chances, just how much? The doctor looked uncomfortable. Without insurance, the surgery alone is around $150,000. ICU stay, recovery, follow-up care, you're looking at close to $300,000 total. I heard Sarah's sharp intake of breath even through the pain. See, here's the thing about my insurance situation. I'm a freelance software developer. Make decent money. Around $85,000 a year. But I'd switched to a high-deductible plan 6 months ago to save on premiums. $15,000 deductible. Sarah had been the one who suggested it. Said we needed to cut costs. I'd agreed because we were supposedly saving for a house. We don't have that kind of money, Sarah said to the doctor. We have the health savings account, I managed to say through gritted teeth, and the emergency fund. That's not enough. Not even close. The doctor cleared his throat. We need to operate now. We can work out payment plans later. Your husband's life. I need to think about this. The doctor's expression changed, hardened. Ma'am, your husband will die without this surgery, tonight. I understand that, but we have a daughter. We have a mortgage. I can't bankrupt our family. We didn't have a daughter. We'd been trying for years. No luck. I was too out of it to process that lie right then. The pain was too intense. They moved me to a pre-op room, gave me something for the pain that barely touched it. Sarah stood in the corner making phone calls. I heard her talking to someone. Couldn't make out the words. A different doctor came in. Younger? He had forms. Mr. Richardson, I need to go over consent forms with you. The surgery carries significant risks. There's a chance of stroke, paralysis, death. But without surgery, the outcome is certain. You'll die, probably within hours. I tried to nod, couldn't move my head without agony shooting through my skull. Sarah stepped forward. He can't afford this surgery. We can't afford it. Mrs. Richardson, we have financial assistance programs. Stop his treatment. The room went silent except for the beeping monitors. I'm sorry, the doctor said. He can't afford this surgery anyway. Just make him comfortable. We'll sign a DNR. The doctor looked at me. I looked back. And in that moment, in that hospital room with my brain literally bleeding, I made a decision. She's right, I said. Sarah's head whipped toward me. What? You're right. Can't afford it. Don't do the surgery. The young doctor looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. Mr. Richardson, you're essentially choosing death over debt. Guess so. Sarah moved to my bedside, grabbed my hand. Her eyes were shining with tears. Baby, I'm so sorry. I wish there was another way. I looked at her. Really looked at her, and I saw it, relief. She was relieved. Where's the form? She asked the doctor. He reluctantly pulled out a paper. Treatment refusal form. Sarah took the pen, started reading through it quickly. Too quickly, like she couldn't wait to sign it. Her hand was shaking slightly as she found the signature line. Put pen to paper. I closed my eyes. Not from pain this time. From understanding. She wanted me dead. I didn't know why yet. But I knew it with absolute certainty. My wife of 6 years wanted me to die in that hospital. The door burst open. I opened my eyes. A man in a white coat walked in. Older, maybe late 50s. Gray hair, sharp eyes. He saw Sarah with pen touching the signature line. Looked at me. His face changed completely. "What the hell is going on in here?" he demanded, crossing the room in 3 strides. The young doctor straightened up. "Dr. Richardson, I wasn't aware you were on call tonight." "Dr. Richardson, my father's name." Sarah looked up, startled. "Who are you?" My father ripped the paper from her hands. She dropped the pen in shock. "I'm the chief of surgery at this hospital, and I'm asking why my patient is signing a treatment refusal form for a ruptured cerebral aneurysm." "Your patient can't afford the surgery," Sarah said. Her voice had an edge now. "We're declining treatment." My father walked over to her, took the form from her hands, looked at my name on it. His face went white. "Marcus?" he said quietly. I hadn't heard my father say my name in 8 years. "Hey, Dad." The young doctor's eyes went wide. "Wait, this is your..." "Out," my father said. Not to me, to the doctor, to Sarah. "Everyone out, now." "I'm his wife," Sarah protested. "You can't." My father rounded on her, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Fury, pure controlled fury. "He doesn't need insurance, he's my son. Get out of my hospital." Sarah stood there, stunned. "Now," my father said. His voice was steel. The young doctor left immediately. Sarah stayed frozen. "Mrs. Richardson," my father said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "Leave this room, leave this floor, and don't come back. Security will escort you out if necessary." "You can't do this. I'm his wife. I have medical power of attorney." "Not anymore. Marcus is conscious and making his own decisions. And as chief of surgery, I'm making a medical determination that your presence is detrimental to my patient's mental well-being and recovery. Leave." Sarah looked at me. I looked back and said nothing. She left. The door closed. My father stood there for a moment. Then he moved to my bedside. "I didn't know you were in the city," he said quietly. "Been here 3 years. You didn't call. You didn't either." He nodded, pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. "I'm going to fix this," he said. "The aneurysm, I'm doing the surgery myself." "Dad, you don't have to." "Yes, I do, because you're my son. And because I've already lost 8 years. I'm not losing you permanently." The pain in my head was still there, but something else hurt now too, something in my chest. "I'm sorry," I said, "for leaving, for not calling, for..." "We'll talk about all of that after I save your life. Deal?" "Deal." He stood up, started for the door, paused. "Marcus?" "Yeah, your wife. Something's wrong there?" "The way she talked about the money, the way she wanted you to refuse treatment. That wasn't normal spousal concern. That was something else." "I know. We'll deal with that too. After." He left to prep for surgery. I found out later what happened while I was under. My father assembled his best surgical team. The surgery took 6 hours. At one point my blood pressure dropped so low they almost lost me. My father refused to give up, kept working, brought me back. I woke up 2 days later in ICU. My father was sitting in a chair next to my bed, hadn't shaved, looked exhausted. His shirt was wrinkled, the same one he'd been wearing when he walked into that pre-op room. "Hey," I croaked. His head snapped up. Relief flooded his face so completely that for a second he looked like he might cry. I'd never seen my father cry. Not even at Mom's funeral, which I'd only heard about weeks later through a mutual acquaintance. "Hey yourself, welcome back. Did you sleep here?" "Mostly. When I wasn't checking your vitals every 20 minutes and driving the nurses crazy, they tried to kick me out. I reminded them I'm the chief of surgery." A small smile. "Has its perks." I tried to smile back. My head hurt, but it was different. Surgical pain, recovery pain, not dying pain. "Thank you for everything, the surgery, staying. All of it. You're my son. I'd do it again in a heartbeat, even if you were stubborn as hell and didn't call me for 8 years. The 8 years sat heavy between us. All the missed birthdays, holidays, conversations, life. "About that," he said, but his voice was gentle. "First, you need to know something. About Sarah." I tensed. The monitors must have picked it up because he glanced at them, then back at me. "Nothing to spike your blood pressure over. Yet. She hasn't been to see you. Not once in 2 days. She called once to ask about your status. I told her you were stable. She said okay and hung up. Didn't ask to talk to you. Didn't ask when visiting hours were. Just okay and hung up. That hurt worse than the incision in my skull. 2 days. I'd been unconscious for 2 days, and my wife couldn't be bothered to visit. to sit by my bed like my father, who I hadn't spoken to in 8 years, had done. "There's more," my father continued carefully, watching my face. "Security flagged something. She tried to access your medical records remotely. Tried to find out if you'd updated your life insurance beneficiary information. The hospital system logged the attempt. She used your login credentials from some old hospital visit. We denied access, obviously. But Marcus, why would she be checking your life insurance while you were in ICU recovering from brain surgery?" I knew why. In the fog of pain and medication, I knew exactly why. I have a policy through my professional association. $500,000. She's the beneficiary. We set it up when we got married. My father's jaw tightened. "She wanted you to die." Yeah. I figured that out when she tried to get me to refuse treatment. "We need to prove it." "How?" "Leave that to me. You focus on getting better. I'm going to focus on making sure your wife faces consequences." Over the next week, while I recovered in the hospital, my father did 2 things. First, he made sure I got the absolute best care possible. Came in every morning, checked my progress, adjusted medications, consulted with the neurology team. He was my doctor, but more than that, he was my father. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt like I had family again. Second, he hired a private investigator. The investigator's report came back on day 9 of my hospital stay. My father brought it to me in person. "You need to be sitting down for this. I'm in a hospital bed. I'm already down. Smart ass, just like your mother." He handed me the folder. I opened it. Sarah had been having an affair for 18 months. With my business partner, Derek. They'd been planning this for 6 months. Waiting for the right moment. The moment came when I switched to the high-deductible insurance plan, a switch Sarah had suggested and I'd stupidly agreed to. The plan was simple. Wait for a medical emergency. Any medical emergency. Convince me to refuse treatment. I die. She gets the life insurance. She and Derek split the money and start a new life together. The PI had emails, text messages, photos of them together at hotels, plans they'd made, houses they'd looked at, even a conversation about what they'd do with the money. I read it all, didn't say anything for a long time. "Marcus," my father said gently, "I need you to do something for me. Anything. Don't tell her I'm going to be okay. Don't tell her the surgery was successful. Let her think I'm still critical, that I might not make it." My father's eyes sharpened. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking she needs to believe she almost got away with it, right up until the moment she realizes she didn't. I like the way you think. What else?" "Can you get me a lawyer? A really good one?" "I know several." The lawyer's name was Patricia Chen. She was expensive, ruthless, and brilliant. My father paid her retainer before I could argue. "Consider it 8 years of missed birthday presents," he said. Patricia heard my story. Read the investigator's report. Her expression never changed. "We can do attempted murder, medical neglect, fraud regarding the life insurance, possibly conspiracy with Derek if we can prove he knew about the plan." "I don't want her in jail." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "You want to go easier on her?" "No. I want to destroy her financially and socially, make her wish she'd gone to jail instead." "Now you're speaking my language." "Here's what we did. First I recovered. 3 weeks in the hospital total. My father discharged me to a rehabilitation center where I did physical therapy. Needed to regain full motor control. The surgery had been a success, but recovery was slow. During this time, Sarah called once a week, asked how I was doing. I kept my answers brief. Hanging in there. Still recovering. Never gave her details. My father, when she called the hospital, would give vague updates. "He's stable. We're monitoring him closely." Let her believe I was still in danger. Meanwhile, Patricia was working. She filed for divorce on my behalf. Had Sarah served at work in front of Derek. That was intentional. She also filed a civil suit against Sarah for attempted fraud and financial damages. That got Sarah's lawyer involved immediately. Then came the depositions. Patricia deposed Sarah, asked her very specific questions about that night in the hospital, about her phone calls, about her relationship with Derek. Sarah lied. Under oath, said she'd been trying to protect our financial future, said she'd never wanted me to die, said she'd been making the tough choices because I wasn't capable. Patricia let her talk, let her commit to her lies. Then Patricia introduced the evidence, the PI report, the emails, the text messages, The photos. Sarah's lawyer went pale. Patricia asked one more question. Mrs. Richardson, do you still maintain you were acting in your husband's best interests when you attempted to deny him life-saving medical treatment? Sarah couldn't answer. The divorce went through in 4 months. I got the house. She got nothing. The prenup we'd signed, at her insistence ironically, protected my business assets. Since she'd committed adultery, proven by the PI report, she wasn't entitled to alimony. The civil suit settled. Sarah agreed to pay $50,000 in damages, sign away any rights to my life insurance, and accept full responsibility for her actions in a written statement. But here's the thing about going nuclear. You don't stop at legal victories. Derek was my business partner. We ran a software development firm together, equal partners. The company was worth about $800,000. I bought him out, used the settlement money from Sarah, plus a loan from my father, to make him an offer. He could sell me his half for $250,000 and walk away clean. Or I could file a lawsuit alleging he was complicit in Sarah's fraud, which would tie the company up in litigation for years and destroy its reputation. Derek took the money. Then I renamed the company. Sent out notices to all our clients. The ones who knew Derek got a personal call from me explaining why he was no longer with the firm. I was professional about it. Just stated facts. He'd been having an affair with my wife, had been involved in personal matters that made continued partnership impossible. Word spread. In our industry, reputation is everything. Derek's was ruined. Sarah tried to get a job. Every place she applied, I had connections. Made sure the hiring managers knew about the affair, about her trying to deny me medical treatment. I never said, don't hire her. I just made sure people knew who they'd be hiring. She ended up moving 2 states away. But the nuclear part? The part I'm most proud of? Sarah had been posting on social media during my entire hospital stay. Sympathy posts. Praying for my husband. Please send good thoughts. Playing the worried wife while texting Derek about how soon she'd have the life insurance money. Once the divorce was final, I posted screenshots. All of it. The texts with Derek. The emails planning what they'd do with the insurance money. Her trying to get me to refuse treatment. All time-stamped with her praying for my husband posts right above them. Captioned it, "Meet my ex-wife, who tried to let me die for insurance money while pretending to pray for my recovery." I posted it at 9 a.m. on a Monday. By noon it had 50,000 shares. By 5 p.m. it was trending. By the next morning it had been picked up by news outlets. Local news, then national. Someone made it into a TikTok that got 3 million views. YouTube commentary channels covered it. Reddit had multiple threads. Sarah's full name was in the post. Her face was in the screenshots. There was no hiding from it. Her employer, a marketing firm in the city, fired her by Wednesday. They released a statement saying they don't employ individuals whose actions reflect poorly on company values. She tried to claim wrongful termination. Her lawyer told her to drop it. The publicity would only make things worse. Her friends, the ones who'd been in her prayer circle, posting supportive comments during my hospital stay, they all deleted their comments. Blocked her. A few of them reached out to me to apologize for not seeing through her act. Her family called me. Her mother crying, asking me to take down the post, saying I was destroying her daughter's life. I reminded her that her daughter had tried to let me die. Her mother hung up on me. The post stayed up. News crews showed up at Sarah's apartment. She stopped answering the door, stopped going outside. Eventually she just left, moved in the middle of the night. I found out later she'd gone to Arizona, changed jobs, changed her name legally. But the internet is forever. People still recognized her, still commented on her social media profiles. She deleted everything eventually. Good. That was 6 months ago. I'm fully recovered now. No lasting damage from the surgery. My father says it's a miracle. I think it's just good surgical skills. He says I'm a smart ass. I say I learned from the best. My father and I have dinner every Sunday now, sometimes at his place, sometimes at mine. We talk about everything. Work. Life. Mom, she passed away while we were estranged, and that's a wound that'll never fully heal. Brain cancer. She went from diagnosis to gone in 4 months. I found out 3 weeks after her funeral. One of her friends from church tracked me down, thought I should know. I'd driven to the cemetery alone, stood at her grave, cried for the first time in years. My father and I never talked about why I hadn't been there, why I hadn't known she was sick. But it sat between us at those early Sunday night dinners, like a third person at the table. Finally, about 2 months into our renewed relationship, he brought it up. "Your mother asked about you," he said quietly. We were at his place. He was grilling steaks. I was making a salad. Near the end, she was on a lot of morphine. Sometimes she'd forget. She'd ask where you were when you were coming to visit. I stopped chopping tomatoes. "What did you tell her?" "That you were busy, that you'd visit soon." I didn't have the heart to tell her we weren't speaking, that I didn't even have your current phone number. "I'm sorry, I should have." "Let me finish." He flipped the steaks. Didn't look at me. The fight we had, about medical school versus software development. I was an ass. I was trying to live my dreams through you, trying to make you into something you weren't. Your mother told me that. Many times. I didn't listen, and I lost 8 years with my son because of my pride. I left. I could have called, could have come back. Pride goes both ways. It does. But I'm your father. I should have been the bigger person. Should have reached out. Should have. He paused, took a breath. Should have told you it was okay to be exactly who you are. A brilliant software developer who makes more money than I do and is probably happier than if you'd spent 8 years in medical school resenting me. We didn't hug. Neither of us is particularly good at that. But we looked at each other across the grill, and something settled. Something that had been broken for 8 years clicked back into place. "I'm glad you didn't die," he said. "Obviously because you're my son. But also because you make a damn good ribeye marinade and it would have died with you. Also because I just got you back and I'm not ready to lose you again. That's the only reason? And I would have missed you. Slightly. Love you too, Dad," he smiled. Raised his beer. "To second chances. To second chances." Last week I ran into Derek at a coffee shop. He saw me, turned to leave. "Derek," I called out. He stopped, turned around slowly. "How's the job search going?" His face hardened. "You know exactly how it's going. You made sure of that." "I made sure people knew the truth. What they did with that information was their choice." "You destroyed my career." "No, you destroyed your career when you decided to fuck my wife and help her try to kill me for insurance money. I didn't know about that, the insurance thing, that was all her. The PI report says otherwise, but believe what you need to believe." He left without another word. I don't feel bad about Derek or Sarah. They made their choices. They tried to use my medical emergency as an opportunity, and they failed. My father says I went too far with the social media post. That I should have taken the high road. I disagree. The high road would have let Sarah play victim, let her pretend she was the wronged spouse. Let her move on with her life without consequences. This way, everyone knows exactly who she is. And honestly, knowing my father has my back now, knowing I've rebuilt my company and my life, knowing that Sarah's reputation is permanently destroyed and she had to leave the state to escape it, I sleep pretty well at night. The aneurysm they said might kill me ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. It gave me back my father, showed me who my wife really was before it was too late, let me burn down the people who tried to burn me. $300,000 in medical bills. My father wrote off every cent. Family doesn't charge family, he said. Sarah wanted me dead for $500,000. Instead, I got my father back, my freedom, and the satisfaction of knowing she got exactly what she deserved. My wife yelled, "This house is a prison. I'm leaving." I simply said, "If that's what you need." Then I had my lawyer send her an itemized bill for her half of the mortgage she hasn't paid in a year. Her sobbing voicemails from her mother's house. Got a voicemail from my mother-in-law this morning. 23rd one since the mediation hearing 2 weeks ago. Haven't listened to any of them, but I can see they're getting longer. This latest one runs 12 minutes, probably another speech about forgiveness and second chances. Rich coming from a woman on her third marriage who still introduces me as Rachel's current husband at family gatherings. My wife Rachel moved back to her mother's house 3 months ago after declaring our home a prison. According to her Instagram, she's on a journey of self-liberation. According to her lawyer's latest settlement proposal, that journey requires 70% of our assets and indefinite spousal support. But let me start from the beginning, because this situation took 2 years to explode and another 6 months to reach this point. I'm Tom, 52, and I own a chain of 5 tire shops. Started with one location 20 years ago, built it up through long hours and reinvesting everything. It's not glamorous work, but it pays well and keeps 40 people employed. Met Rachel 15 years ago when she brought her car in for new tires. She was 33, recently divorced from an artist who'd spent their savings on a failed gallery. She worked as a dental hygienist and said she wanted stability this time. I'm done with dreamers, she told me on our 3rd date. I want someone who has their feet on the ground. Should have noticed she defined herself by what she was running from, not what she was running to. But I was 37, established, and ready to settle down with someone who seemed to appreciate hard work. We married 2 years later. Nice wedding, nothing extravagant. Bought a 4-bedroom colonial in a good neighborhood, the kind with mature trees and kids riding bikes. Rachel kept working for about a year after the wedding, then quit. Said she wanted to focus on making our house a home. I was fine with it. The shops were doing well and I liked the idea of someone actually being home when I got there. First few years were great. Rachel threw herself into homemaking like it was her calling. Decorated every room, learned gourmet cooking, hosted dinner parties that made us popular in the neighborhood. She seemed genuinely happy. We talked about kids, but she wanted to wait until she felt ready. I didn't push. Around year 5, the restlessness started. "Don't you want more than this?" she asked one night over dinner. "More than what?" "This routine, work, home, sleep, repeat." "That's called life, Rachel. What do you want to do?" "Travel. See the world, have adventures." "So let's plan a trip. Where do you want to go?" "It's not about a trip, it's about freedom to be spontaneous." Hard to be spontaneous when you run a business. Maybe that's the problem. That became her theme. Maybe the business was the problem. Maybe the house was the problem. Maybe the town was the problem. Never that, her expectations were the problem. Year 7 brought the renovation obsession. Kitchen wasn't modern enough. Bathrooms needed updating. Basement should be finished. I went along because I wanted her happy, and we could afford it. Spent about $120,000 total over 2 years. Each project just led to another complaint. "This house has no soul," she announced after we'd completely renovated it. "It's too perfect, too suburban. You designed every inch of it." I was trying to make it something it's not. Year 10 was when she discovered wellness culture. Started with yoga classes, escalated to retreats and workshops, life coaches, meditation gurus, self-discovery weekends. I didn't object. If it helped her find purpose, money well spent. The retreats got more expensive and frequent. A weekend in Sedona, a week in Costa Rica, 2 weeks in Bali, always coming back with new vocabulary about authentic living and spiritual awakening. Started talking about how our life was unconscious and inauthentic. "What's inauthentic about it?" I asked after her 3rd Bali trip. "Everything. This house, this neighborhood, this life, it's also programmed." "By who?" "Society, expectations, the matrix of suburban conformity." "The matrix of suburban conformity? Where'd you get that?" "You wouldn't understand. You've never questioned anything." "I question why we need to spend $8,000 to sit in silence in Bali. See, you reduce everything to money, because everything costs money. That's such limited thinking." Year 11 brought her friendship with Marissa. Met her at a workshop about radical authenticity. Marissa was everything Rachel thought she wanted to be. Single at 45, living in a downtown loft, calling herself a life artist, which seemed to mean she lived off her divorce settlement while making vision boards. Suddenly, our life was embarrassing. Our house was a prison. Marriage was outdated. My work ethic was toxic productivity. Everything stable was suspect. "Marissa's flying to Peru next week for an ayahuasca ceremony," Rachel would say. "Just booked it yesterday. Must be nice to have that freedom." "You could go to Peru. We have savings." That's not the point. She doesn't have to ask anyone or plan around someone else's schedule. Because she has no responsibilities. Exactly. No prison bars. Started couples therapy that year. Rachel picked the therapist, Dr. Linda, who spent most sessions exploring how traditional marriage structures constrained feminine evolution. When I mentioned that Rachel hadn't worked in 10 years and had unlimited freedom to pursue her interests, Dr. Linda said I was weaponizing financial dependence. How is supporting someone weaponizing anything? I asked. By creating a dynamic where she needs your permission. She doesn't need my permission. She spent $60,000 on retreats without asking. The fact that you're tracking the amount proves the power imbalance. Couldn't win. If I supported her, I was controlling. If I questioned expenses, I was financially abusive. If I mentioned she could work if she wanted independence, I was shaming her choices. Year 12 was when she started spending more time with Marissa. Weekend trips to the city. Week-long artist retreats that seemed to involve wine and complaining about men. Always coming home with new grievances about our life. Marissa says marriage is a patriarchal construct designed to control women's sexuality and labor. Marissa's been divorced 3 times. Maybe she's not the best marriage counselor. She's experienced. She's lived. What have I done? Built a home, created a life, been a partner, been a prisoner. That word started showing up everywhere. The house was a prison. Marriage was a prison. The neighborhood was a prison. My schedule was a prison. Everything that provided structure was imprisonment. 6 months ago, things reached a breaking point. She'd been at one of Marissa's workshops, really just 8 divorced women drinking wine and validating each other's complaints, and came home vibrating with righteous anger. I've had an awakening, she announced. Another one? Don't be dismissive. This is serious. I've realized I'm dying here. Dying? Spiritually, emotionally. This house, this life, it's killing everything authentic about me. What do you want to do about it? I need space. Real space, to discover who I am without all these constraints. What constraints? You do whatever you want. I do what I want within the prison of being Mrs. Tom Gardner in this suburban tomb. So what do you want? Freedom, liberation, a chance to really live. Meaning, I'm moving out. Tonight. I need to find myself without you watching and judging. I'm not stopping you. She seemed surprised I didn't fight. Packed dramatically while listing all the ways I'd held her back by providing a stable life. Left for her mother's house with promises to do the work on herself. I changed the locks the next day. Not to keep her out, but because she'd been careless with keys and I didn't know who might have copies. Texted her about it so she wouldn't be surprised if she came by. That text triggered a storm. How dare I change the locks on our house? This was financial abuse, controlling behavior, probably illegal. Called my lawyer Gary the next morning. He'd handled business stuff for me for years, but also did family law. Told him the whole situation. She left voluntarily, he asked. Packed her bags and announced she was leaving to find herself. Any kids? No, she couldn't decide if she wanted them. How long since she worked? 13 years. She'll want support, probably significant support. She's able-bodied with a hygienist license. Why would I support her choosing not to work? Because that's how divorce works. You enabled her lifestyle, you continue supporting it. For how long? Depends on the judge. Could be years, could be permanent. That's insane. That's marriage. Let's talk strategy. Rachel hired Marissa's divorce attorney, a guy named Brad who apparently specialized in empowering women through divorce. First settlement proposal was aggressive. She wanted the house, lifetime support, and 70% of all assets. Gary laughed when he saw it. They're anchoring high. Standard tactic. Here's what we do. We documented everything. 13 years of choosing not to work. Over $400,000 spent on personal enrichment, retreats, workshops, coaches, shopping. The fact that she'd left voluntarily while calling our life a prison. Her social media posts about liberation and authenticity. The forensic accountant found interesting patterns. Rachel had been moving money to a personal account for months before leaving. Small amounts but regular. She'd also opened credit cards I didn't know about, run up about $30,000 in debt on retreat deposits and investments in herself. First mediation was a disaster. Rachel showed up in new designer clothes, talking about her journey and authentic self. When the mediator asked about her employment plans, she said she was exploring possibilities in the wellness space. What does that mean concretely? The mediator asked. I'm training to be a life coach, helping other women break free from limiting beliefs. Training where? Various workshops and online courses. Are you certified? Certification is just another form of patriarchal gatekeeping. The mediator, a woman in her 60s, looked over her glasses. How do you plan to support yourself? That's what we're here to discuss. Tom trapped me in financial dependence for 13 years. He owes me support while I build my practice. From what I see, you chose not to work. Is that correct? I was maintaining our home. The records show a housekeeper twice weekly, a gardener, pool service, and meal deliveries several times a week. There's more to maintaining a home than chores. Can you explain what you contributed? Emotional labor, spiritual energy, creating a harmonious environment. I see receipts here for over $70,000 in retreat expenses last year. Was that necessary for home maintenance? Rachel's lawyer tried to redirect, but damage was done. The mediator suggested she consider getting a job while pursuing her coaching dreams. Second mediation brought new demands. Rachel wanted credit for unpaid domestic labor. Apparently, she'd calculated that her household management was worth $150,000 per year. Gary nearly choked on his coffee. How did you arrive at that number? The mediator asked. It's based on what a house manager, personal chef, decorator, and life organizer would cost. But you had a housekeeper, used meal delivery, and spent most of your time at retreats. What exactly were you managing? The emotional ecosystem of our home. Can you quantify that? Not everything valuable can be quantified. That's Tom's problem. He reduces everything to numbers. This is a financial negotiation. Numbers are relevant. The breakthrough came when Rachel's credit card statements were fully examined. Not just the amounts, but where they went. Turns out, several retreats were actually just luxury resorts. The wellness workshops included spa packages and shopping trips. One, consciousness expansion intensive, was a wine tasting cruise. Her lawyer tried to argue these were legitimate self-care expenses. The mediator wasn't buying it. Mrs. Gardner, you spent $42,000 last year on something called a goddess activation retreat in Tulum. Can you explain what that was? It was a transformative experience of feminine empowerment. According to the resort website, it was a 5-star all-inclusive vacation with daily yoga classes. That's a reductive description. But accurate? Rachel's position weakened with each revelation. The life coach training she'd been doing? Mostly Instagram courses about building a personal brand. The wellness investments? Luxury goods and experiences marketed with spiritual language. Then came the kicker. Rachel had been telling people I was abusive, controlling, that she'd escaped a toxic marriage. Posted about it on social media. Given interviews to a podcast about survivor stories. Problem was, she'd also posted hundreds of photos over the years showing our trips, date nights, her retreats, all the freedom she'd had. Hard to claim imprisonment when you're documenting your liberty. My lawyer sent a cease and desist about the defamation. Her lawyer convinced her to take down the posts, but screenshots existed. Judges don't like when someone claims abuse, while evidence shows the opposite. Final mediation happened 2 weeks ago. Rachel's demands had dropped significantly, but she still wanted the house and substantial support. She arrived with Marissa for moral support, both dressed like they were going to a wellness photo shoot. The mediator had done her homework. Mrs. Gardner, you've stated you can't work because of the trauma of your marriage, yet you left voluntarily, calling it liberation. Can you explain? Just because I chose to leave doesn't mean I wasn't traumatized. By what specifically? The daily microaggressions. The spiritual suppression. Can you give examples? Tom never understood my journey. He'd make comments about the costs of retreats. Noting that retreats cost money is traumatic? It's the energy behind it. The judgment. I see. And now you want him to pay for more retreats? I want support while I heal and build my authentic life. The life you couldn't build during 13 years of financial support? Rachel started crying then. Not sad tears, frustrated ones. The mediator offered tissues and waited. This isn't fair. Rachel finally said, I gave him 13 years. What did you give him? My presence, my energy, myself. And what did he give you? Money, said like it was nothing. Just money. And stability, a home, security. The prison you mentioned? Rachel had no answer for that. The final agreement wasn't what either of us wanted, but was fair. Rachel gets 2 years of rehabilitative support at $3,000 per month, enough to live on while she figures out employment. We split the house equity 50-50 after sale. She keeps what she moved money to her personal accounts, about $40,000, but is responsible for the credit card debt she accumulated. No permanent alimony. She exploded when presented with the terms. 2 years? That's nothing. Her lawyer explained it was reasonable given her employability and the length of marriage. But I haven't worked in 13 years. By choice, the mediator noted. You maintained your hygienist license. You could return to work. I'm not that person anymore. Then become someone new who's employed. The house went on market last week. Multiple offers already. Turns out the prison is highly desirable. Should clear about $400,000 after mortgage payoff. Rachel's share will be around $200,000 after the debt settlement. Enough to start over, not enough to retire on. She's been calling nonstop since signing the agreement. First angry, how could I do this to her? Then bargaining, what if she gave up the support for the house? Then desperate, she can't build a coaching practice in 2 years. You had 13 years to build something, I told her in the one call I answered. You built vision boards. That's cruel. That's accurate. Her mother's been calling too. Diane's frustrated because Rachel won't look for work, just spends time creating Instagram content about her Phoenix journey and attending Marissa's wine-fueled support groups. She keeps saying the universe will provide, Diane told me. I said the universe provided Tom and she threw him away. Even Marissa's getting tired of it. Turns out encouraging someone to leave their marriage is more fun than housing them after. Rachel asked to move into the loft and Marissa suddenly had a no roommates policy. My favorite development? Rachel started a GoFundMe for her journey to authentic living. Raised $236, mostly from her mom. The comment section turned brutal when people realized she was fundraising a divorce settlement. I'm buying a 3-bedroom ranch closer to my main shop. Simple, 1 story, minimal maintenance. Dating someone new, met her at my accountant's office where she works. She owns her own condo, has a 401k, and thinks vision boards are for teenagers. We go Dutch on dinners, and she's never used the word journey, except for actual travel. My ex wanted to find himself too, she told me last week. Found himself living in his car. Turns out authentic living requires authentic income. Rachel's latest strategy is telling people I financially abused her by only giving her 2 years support. One of her workshop friends called me about it. Do you know what she's going through? This woman asked. Yes, she's going through the consequences of her choices. She's lost everything. She got half the house equity and 2 years support for choosing not to work. That's not nothing. But her dreams cost money. My money. Which is why we're divorced. The house closes next month. Rachel will get her check, her 2 years of support, and her complete freedom from the prison of marriage to someone who worked for a living. She can be authentic, liberated, and employed if she chooses. The universe did provide for her. It provided a husband who supported her for 13 years while she searched for meaning in every resort and workshop on the coast. Now the universe is providing reality. 2 years goes fast when you're not working. She'll figure that out soon enough. As for me, I'm free too. Free from vision boards and goddess retreats. Free from being called a prison warden for paying bills. Free from someone who confused luxury with enlightenment and my bank account with the universe's abundance. The real prison wasn't the house. It was living with someone who saw stability as stagnation and gratitude as optional. Now we're both liberated. Only difference is I can afford my freedom.